This is the Life Sciences Leadership Show. I'm your host, Michael Piperno, and I'm a leadership communication coach and facilitator who specializes in the life sciences industry. On each episode of this show, I interview industry leaders from organizations of all sizes about their leadership journeys. My goal for the show is to help you gain leadership insights and knowledge that'll help you in your own life sciences leadership journey. Okay, on with the show. Hi, listeners and listener. I'm so excited that you're here today for my conversation with my guest, Dr. Fernanda Arnaldez. She's the Executive Director of Oncology R&D at AstraZeneca. And Fernanda and I have known each other for several years now. It's been a while, Fernanda, actually. But I'm so glad you came on the show today. Thanks for coming on.
Has been a while, Michael. Thank you so much for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
Good. Listen, I want to help the persons listening to this podcast, to this episode of the Leadership Communication Show, get to know you a little bit better and hear about your leadership journey to the point where you are today. So why don't you take a few moments and just tell us about your journey?
Journey, that's an interesting one. So my journey actually started as a physician in practice, in pediatric residency. And as you know, in pretty much everywhere in the world, the medical training scheme is pretty vertical. So the more you learn, the more you do, the higher you get. And there is an aspect of leadership that it's pretty much unquestionable. Thinking is definitely there, but it's about what to do because somebody else said so. And you start to realize then how much you're learning and how much you have to give. It was a very important point in my career when I decided to come to the US for further training. I am born in Argentina. Interestingly, the schema of the medical training atmosphere is pretty much the same, but I was able to find my voice pretty soon when I was leading a lab at the NIH and when I was talking to my mentor. And it was very clear that different voices were welcome as opposed to ignored. And I had a lot to contribute. And importantly, failure was expected because that's what science is about, right? It's about asking the right questions as opposed to getting to the magic answer. So that was fantastic. Now, I work in the private sector now, and I really love my job. But it has taken a lot of deliberate learning and training and perfectioning and trying to get better every day to improving my leadership skills. It's not something you're born with. It's not something somebody gives you. It's something you learn about and train to do better. And I want my teams to succeed. So I need to be better and I am committed to that. And that's what I have been on so far. Sometimes you are offered a seat and gently led to the table. Sometimes you are invited, but the seat is a little bit farther away and you need to bring it close. Mm-hmm. Occasionally, you need to elbow your way in, one way or the other. If you are there, means that you have a seat and you need to sit at a table, occupy your space, be respectful of everybody else, and ensure that everybody else is respectful of what you have to say.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things when we worked together several years back that I was so impressed with you about is that I just remember one time we were in a group setting and there was a debate going on and you had a perspective and you had something to say and it was a disagreement with what others were saying. And the way you did it was so masterful because you confidently said what your opinion. You knew you were going to get pushback, but you created an environment in that moment where the pushback was welcome. Like what you did was you asked for a conversation rather than just forcefully pushing your opinion. So I don't know, have you always been good at that? Like making people feel heard and having respectful debate? Because so much of what I see, Fernanda, is people avoid debate because they're worried that it's going to make people feel upset or put them in conflict.
Well, first of all, thank you. I have no recollection of what you're talking about. But if I had to answer truthfully, I would say that no, I was not born good at that. And I volunteer that I was probably pretty terrible at it, right? Especially when you are like a teenager or a very young adult. You can be quite combative, and that comes with age, right? And if you ask me about that in the context of leadership, I am very different today than what I was 20 years ago. And hopefully, I am way worse than what I will be 20 years from now. That's my expectation. But yes, I found that it's extremely beneficial to me, to my teams, and to the output of the team, call it to the company, to society at large, and whatnot, to ensure that people have a safe space where they feel trusted, where we can all contribute and move towards the common goal, because that's not only good for people, it's actually very good for the business. It's very good for the environment, and it's good for me because I live a happier life, right? That doesn't mean that I avoid confrontation. That doesn't mean that I do not make decisions. That doesn't mean that I am not accountable for the decisions I make. But there is a fine line, right?
Yeah, there's a balance in leadership. I've been having a lot of conversations lately about how, emotions are going to show up. Relationships matter. How you make people feel matters. It's not just your leadership title doesn't give you leadership. Leadership is an act that you have to practice every day, and that involves making people know they matter. It involves feelings, it involves emotion. Yes, it involves science. Yes, it involves everything else. But you're so right, and it's very often an intangible that's hard to prove. But we know that healthy relationships, respect, healthy debate, they all contribute to the bottom line in the long run, and they all make a difference, especially in the crusade that we're all in. This life sciences is to help patients get the therapies that they need to be better, to feel better.
I think what you're saying is quite remarkable because it also offers the opportunity for debate. I would venture to say that despite all the theories and all what's written by people who are probably way better versed at sociology than me, it's clear that the place for emotions at the table is something that is not viewed equally across the board. And there is also a notion of some bias in it. But I do believe that you cannot foster trust and safety being completely emotionless. I also think that if you are in this to help people through a devastated journey in their lives and to help their families in the way, you cannot be emotionless.
Right.
Right? But it's clear that if your emotions paralyze you or play against you, then you have a lot of work to do because you're not effective. So it's easier said than done. Clearly, we have all been swept away. I have walked out of a room to find a quiet place to calm down.
Mm-hmm.
I'm learning. Hopefully today I'm way better, but I have some dues to pay still.
Yeah. Well, we all do. And it's a journey. And I love that you said that, you're different than you were 20 years ago, and you're going to be different than you are today, 20 years from now, because of what we learn and what we experience. We're definitely works in progress. But I want to get back to one thing that you brought up, because it's a topic that I think is a topic that can help people based on hearing from your journey. So you talked about taking your seat at that table, and sometimes you have to move the seat a little bit closer, and sometimes you have to have, I don't want to use the word confidence because it's not like you don't have confidence if you're not speaking up, but it's knowing how to manage that in the moment. Like how have you, what have you found has made you successful in having the voice that you deserve to have within these organizations and having the seat at the table that you should be at, whether it's today or throughout certain parts of your journey? Are there any things that come to mind?
Yeah. Let me start by saying that I have successes, but I have times when I am absolutely not successful at all,
Mm-hmm.
even in today. So there really depends on the context and the people and the discussion. So I'm so sorry. We might end up now because I don't have a magic recipe to make it happen all the time. But if you do, I'm willing to listen. Things that helped me. The first one was being intentional about it, being absolutely intentional. The first times, and I'm talking about like residency, right? I was terrified. absolutely terrified. And it was clear that if I didn't make it then, I was never going to make it. So I pushed myself significantly. And then it becomes a little bit of fake it till you make it. It's like, okay, I'm going to do this and I'm going to keep doing it. And it was fantastic because I could discover that, yes, I had something to offer. And it was really, really an enriching experience. Going to the past, so almost as an anecdote, I do remember already in the private sector, probably around the time when we met, um, I was being like obnoxiously interrupted by one of my colleagues in a meeting led by the team lead, the big team lead. And finally, I lost it. And I learned, like I tell some of my mentee or some mentees or some younger investigators, I learned to move my neck to the side and say, excuse me, I am not done. So let me finish and then it will be your turn. So I did that, and my knees were shaking under the table. It's like I'm going to be fired tomorrow. And my eyes and the eyes of the big boss crossed the path. Nothing happened then. Nothing happened later. Yes, this person, the colleague that was interrupting me, completely corrected their behavior. And we're good. It was 10 years later that I was working together with Big Boss again. And what he says stays with me. He said, initially, I knew you were good and you had what it took. I was a little bit concerned about your ability to navigate this jungle. However, all those fears went away one day when you turned to this person and you did this. And I noticed. And at that time, I played dumb. I said, oh, I don't know what you're talking about, but great. He might be listening to this and now I'm busted.
Right. Oh, that's such a great story that you got that full circle moment of knowing how that landed for you from, a very important person from that time. That's great.
Well, this person continues to be like, I love leaders who walk the walk, right? And,
yeah.
I was also told once when I was younger, you're too nice to lead. You cannot lead.
I don't like hearing that.
I didn't like it either.
I've been told that too, to be honest with you.
But I'm a firm believer that feedback is a gift, but sometimes there are gifts that you get from inside the package and you say, oh, I don't like this gift, really. I'm going to exchange it for something different.
Right. I love that. Yeah. Yeah. So, and everybody's perception, I mean, feedback is often from the point of someone else's perception of what they think leadership looks like or what their brand of leadership is. And something that I've learned from being a coach for so long is, and something I've believed for a long time, is that there's no one right way. Like you said before, if you had a template, share it with me. There are a lot of things that are good to do and to consider, but every leader has their own unique brand of leadership.
I would agree with that. And I also discovered, of course, the hard way, making mistakes and whatnot, that it takes way too much energy to try to do that by becoming somebody who you're not. Because yes, you can do that for some time, but then it becomes unsustainable. So that energy doesn't go to your job number one and your life and something else. So it's not worth it. And sometimes you unintentionally start occupying that imposter's space that is not conclusive to anything good or conducive to anything good. So yeah.
So many people experience that, though, and whether it's true imposter syndrome or it's just nervousness or, like you said, fake it till you make it. I had a mentor who used to always say that to me. He was like, Michael, we're going to fake this till we make it. And I'm like, all right, if you think we can do it, I'll jump on and I'll fake it with you. But the fact is we weren't faking it. It kind of comes to mind, like people have said to me, because I've started my own businesses and I'm comfortable in front of a big crowd and all this stuff. And people have called me fearless in the past. And I always say, no. I'm not fearless. I'm courageous. If I believe in something enough and I think that the risk is worth it and that I'm not going to hurt anybody, I'll take the chance. I'll give it a shot. You know what I mean? So, and that's like in that moment where you were talking about sitting at that table and being interrupted, and the physiological, your knees are shaking. You knew it was your time to speak up, and you had the courage to do it in that moment. It's not an easy thing to do.
Afraid, there is no way you can be brave, right? You cannot face your fears. There is no fear. You are insane in a sense. But I would point out that in my particular case, medical training was extremely helpful because there is no room for error, really, in some occasions. And it comes to the point that if you are running a code, yes, your knees are shaking and they are shaking big time, but you have the whole team looking at you. And
Hmm.
at some point, you train to be the one who calls the shots. And if you are in charge, you are in charge. So you almost detach from reality
Hmm.
to do what you have to do, and you train very hard for that. Beyond the technical skills, there is that sense that, all right, the direction I take is the direction everybody else will take. So I better be darn sure that I am doing my best, whatever that is. And I better not show, at least for now, that my knees are shaking. So it takes practice, I guess. That's a little bit of the fake it till you make it.
Yeah, it takes practice and it takes experience. And then when you learn to trust yourself more as you get more experience, those types of moments get easier. But I mean, but the fact is that we live in a world where, there's not equity. You and I have talked about this a little bit, and I know that for some, equity is a dirty word right now, but it's not. I'll tell everybody it's a fact. Okay, there are inequities in all aspects of, especially the world that we're in, that we're talking about in the business world, and having the courage to speak up about those, having the courage to, and the self awareness to check your own biases, like all those things are critically important. So, for you as a woman in the life sciences world, what advice would you have for someone who's not as senior as you, or someone who's trying to get that seat at the table in a world that maybe equity might not be showing up?
When I was a leader many years ago, or a junior person trying to make it like decades ago, I was convinced that working hard and doing the right thing was enough. And that sooner or later, somebody somewhere, I don't know, the genie in the bottle was going to come out and was going to realize that I was doing a good job and was going to come and give me a pat in the back. And I discovered that, first of all, that is not true. That we all, including myself, have biases and blind spots. That if you don't tell somebody very clearly who you are, what you do, what you want to do, and what you need to do that, they cannot figure it out, or there is no reason why they should, right? And that was pretty eye opening. Pretty eye opening. It's like, wait a minute, it's not enough. And it took me a lot of discussion with myself and with senior female colleagues who would say, like, listen, you're in the wrong here. Like, no,
Right.
I'm not. There is no way I am. And yeah, and I had
Yeah.
to learn.
No, that's thanks for sharing that, because it's funny, Fernanda. I've been having that conversation with a lot of other leaders lately about that. And, I often see that frustration of, and it's not like they're saying my work should speak for itself, but in a way they kind of are. They're expecting to be noticed for that. And a lot of times they're noticed for that and they're getting more work piled on because they're so good at being good at
I
what
know
they
that one.
do, rather than getting recognized and elevated for their leadership and for, what the impact that they're making from that work. It can really be a catch-22 for people if you're expecting your work to speak for itself. And if you're not being loud enough, and I don't mean being obnoxious, but if your volume isn't high enough on the impact that you're making and the value that that you're bringing. And that's can be uncomfortable for many people to share. People don't want to sound like they're tooting their own horn or they're being arrogant. But like you said, people aren't going to know unless you help them see it. And you can do it in a way that feels good to you. It's different for everybody. An introvert's going to have a harder time with it, maybe, than an extrovert. You may think I'm an extrovert, Fernanda, from working with me in this, but I'm really not. Like, this version of me comes on when I can help others. And I feel like I'm excited about talking to you because I think the person listening to this may be helped by us. And that lights me up. That's when this version of me shows up. But normally I'm the quiet guy in the corner. Put me in a networking event, I'll be the one standing alone in the corner waiting for you to come up to me. Isn't that
Well, I
funny?
think we discussed this in the past. When I took one of my first MBTIs as an adult, I came back home and I told my husband, like, and I've been with my husband and then my boyfriend like for decades. So
Huh?
we know each other. We
Right.
tolerate each other pretty well.
Right.
It was so like, can you believe it? This test has to be wrong. Why? It shows I'm an introvert. Yeah, you are. What are you talking about? And it's clear that I am. So when I start thinking about, I am definitely an introvert. But as you point out, when you are on a stage, literally or figuratively, right? Like you're teaching or you're leading a team or you are talking to a colleague in a podcast, you have to leave all your introversion partially aside and to perform. That doesn't mean to lose your authenticity, but it means to be up to the space that you need to occupy at that time. And then you go home, you curl with your dog and a book, and to make sure you don't talk to anybody for at least an hour or so, and you recharge, and that's okay. And yeah,
Yeah,
I
exactly.
hear you.
We're very much alike that way, Fernanda. Like, I'm facilitating a full day workshop on Monday, and I can't wait. And it's going to be great. And I'm so excited about it. But Monday night, I'm just going to want to sit quiet and recharge my batteries because it will take all of me to
Yes.
do that performance. And it's not fake. It's not a fake version of me.
No,
But it's just that's I'm good at that and I love doing that, but it really takes a lot out of me. So it's interesting that we share that. We did talk about that once, but I have forgotten that we talked a little bit about that.
I wonder if there are more people out there than what we think
Oh,
who
there are.
actually share that trait.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. When I disclose to people that I'm an introvert, very often they'll share with me that they are or they have qualities of an introvert more so than other people would know. So it's interesting.
That is really something that is challenging. In a sense, all of us living in this age where exposure means everything and where and I say that sarcastically, where whatever you do, eat, or wear are going to be broadcasted in TikTok, in Instagram, in whatever venue you like to say. I think we take a risk of depleting ourselves without having those places to recharge, right?
Yeah.
And that goes back to work, where you actually build the environment. I am a firm believer you build the environment, at least the close environment you want to be in.
Yep.
There's a part of that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that takes work and that takes relationships and that takes trust and all of those things. And the best leaders, they get that formula right. But again, might not look the same for every team, but if they're
It
doing the work
doesn't.
to create no, it doesn't. Right. Yep. But if you're willing to do the work to have people feel like, number one, they belong. Number two, their work matters. Number three, it's a safe environment where they can speak up and not be retaliated against. And number four, where healthy debate and healthy opposition are encouraged and safe and stay respectful. Because that's how innovation and change happens. That's how people create new things, is by challenging what currently is. And
It's true.
if it's not safe to do that and people don't feel safe to do that, guess what? You just got a bunch of people just doing the same old, same old.
Super tall order at many levels. I mean, it becomes incredibly challenging, and we all fall in the trap every now and then of like going into the old ways and trying to do something that is not entirely appropriate. That's why I think becoming very flexible, receptive, continuing with the analogy, I'm receptive to feedback and every kind of feedback, and then I decide, this goes, this doesn't, and ultimately deep down it resonates with you or it doesn't. And you know that when it resonates because it bothers you tremendously, there's something true to it, right?
There means very often that's true. Yeah, either it's tweaking a value you hold or it's something that's true about yourself that you don't really necessarily like to admit.
Bingo.
Yeah. Yeah. We all have those things. So, well, listen, Fernanda, I have a couple just quick fire questions to ask you as we kind of wrap up our time together here. So, I'm going to ask you 3 questions.
You didn't tell me you were going
And
to
I
do
know
this.
I didn't tell you. And if you're not happy with how this lands, I won't.
Trust
I'll cut it. I'll give you an easy one first. Ready?
Okay, let's do that.
So, if you could have any meal this evening, any meal in the world, your favorite meal, what would you have?
Pizza.
Pizza. Any special toppings?
I really like a good margarita pizza with real tomatoes and real fresh basil and a good quality mozzarella, good olive oil, and you know what? I'm easy there. It's like happy.
Oh, that sounds good. All right, now I'm getting hungry. It's around lunchtime now. So, all right. So when you think about the strengths you bring to your work and your role, what do you think is one of your superpowers or your top strengths?
Empathy. I see empathy as a superpower. And I started to realize about that when I mean, I thought it was a given for everybody. And then I was shown that it's not. I am drawn to try to understand people.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I mean, you know, like it's interesting how when you feel that somebody else is able to, at least partially or at least imperfectly, but willing to try to step on your shoes, the magic happens. Oftentimes the magic.
Yeah.
So, yes.
Yeah, we share that too. Maybe that's why we like each other so much, because I have the empathy is a big one for me, and I didn't realize for a long time how number one powerful it was, and I'm glad it's a word people talk about more today, and that people try to actively practice true empathy, not just sympathy but empathy, putting yourself in someone's shoes. But I didn't realize how much of it I had, and how little of it some other people have. It was really like when that clicked for me many, many years ago, it was like, oh, wow, like you can, and it's actually something I help people with because it is a teachable skill.
Yeah, I didn't realize like what's so novel about these people. Like,
I know, it's so funny. It's so funny.
and I'm sure I have so many areas where the hole is super big and I don't see it. So
right. Yep.
That's why you have kids eventually. So they tell you, oh, you have all these holes.
That's funny. Well, everybody's got their blind spots. So I just did a post on LinkedIn about that a lot of people are liking, because it's something that a lot of leaders don't invest time looking at. And then when you have a blind spot, very often it's something that someone can perceive you in a way that you don't want to be perceived, because you don't see that blind spot and you don't see how your behavior is affecting other people. Again, back to feelings and emotions. So I do a lot of work with helping leaders like identify what those things are and then manage the perceptions around them. So last question, Fernanda, what is, the best leadership advice or story that you've ever got?
One thing that really changed the way I looked at myself was a very, very senior leader who scientifically was my direct mentor at the time. And he continues to be my close friend, almost family. And I was trying to figure something out, and it was just not. He stopped everything he was doing. He looked at me in the eye and said, but you don't realize, do you? You're a force. When you do this, you get stuff done. You are a force. You need to understand that. Fly under the radar. And no, you don't. And it took me some time to kind of get to what he was getting at. And that was powerful, not because he was giving me a compliment. It was powerful because I was completely unaware. And coming from a different place and speaking originally a different language and trying to crack the code on a very difficult scientific question, whatever that was at the time. And it's something that you don't pay attention to.
Those moments, I love hearing about those moments in other people's stories, because what I love about that moment is, number one, the impact that just that simple comment had on you. that that's what you thought of today when I asked that question.
Oh, yeah. Well,
but
yes.
also that that person took the time to tell you. And
well,
that's a crusade that I'm on. Like, if someone matters to you, or something they did, or you notice something beautiful or amazing in someone, take the time to tell them.
Nice to meet you. Do you want to be my mentor? Like,
Right.
what are you talking about? It does.
I know it does.
But when I joined this person's lab at the NCI, I mean, I was so impressed because as high up as he was, I would send my papers and they would come back with edits, thoughtful edits and comments within 48, handwritten at that time.
Right.
It doesn't matter. And every time I needed a brief window to ask a clear question, he was there. Now, it's a two-way avenue, right? I never went to my one-on-ones without my list and the key aspects that I wanted to get out of. And I think that worked out really well. But yes, he made the time to invest in the people who were working in his lab. And I took that to heart. Because it's really an investment, and it's not that you're being Machiavellic, right? You put the time and then you get so much.
Yeah. I was hearing you tell that story made me think back, because like asking myself the same question, like when you had that moment where they said that to you. I remember being 28 years old in a marketing job, and I had this really wonderful boss, and she sat me down one day, and I thought I was in trouble for some, and she sat me down one day and she just said to me, I want you to know that you're a leader. You're not just I forget what I was, sales and marketing manager. She's like, I just need you to know that you're a leader. And she gave me a book called The Heart of the Leader, I think it was called. And it was like this, it was one of those moments where like I didn't look at myself as a leader at all, but she gave me permission to at that young age. And that was such a gift that I'll always be grateful for.
Takes so little.
Takes so little. Fernanda, this was such a great conversation. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. I really, really appreciate it.
No, thank you. And thanks to the audience who is putting up with us, apparently. So I really appreciate the time, Michael.
I'm sure I'll get some really good feedback about what we shared today, because I think the themes that we talked about are things that help people along their journey, and that's what I'm all about. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the show today. If you enjoyed it, please rate it on your favorite podcast platform and tell one colleague or friend about it. Thanks. We'll see you next time. The Life Sciences Leadership Show is brought to you by the Comvia Group, experts in leadership communication coaching and training for life sciences leaders. Learn more at www.wearecomvia.com. That's WEARARE, Comvia, COMVIA.com.